नमामि धन्वन्तरिम् आदिदेवं सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपद्मं लोके जरारुग्भयमृत्युनाशं दातारमीशं विविधौषधीनां सहस्राक्षं गणाधीशं स्वगुरुं च सरस्वतीं जनकं जनयित्रीं च शास्त्रादौ प्रणमाम्यहम्. I welcome you all back to the continued session under the series of understanding the concepts of surgical principles in Ayurveda with special reference to its relevance even in current times. So here we are today in almost the final session of the series, wherein we will be discussing about the complete essence of the Sushruta Samhita with special purview or with special stress upon the concepts of surgery. So until now, we have tried to have a look on the concepts of Sushruta Samhita, focusing on certain important topics like the plastic surgery, surgical simulation, microvasculature, etc. So in today's session, we will see a glimpse of the complete concept of surgery in the Sushruta Samhita, with special emphasis on one of the surgical procedure, the major procedure what Acharya Sushruta was performing on those days, that is the operation or the surgery of removal of the urinary stone, the bladder stone. So the surgery on the urinary bladder, with also special emphasis on pain management, which is very very important, and also on that of the surgical ethics. So, starting from the Sutrasthana to until the end, that is the Uttara Tantra, we have varied references for surgical concepts, though they are not mentioned in an order, unlike a modern surgical text that it starts with the basic concepts of surgery. It goes with a clear-cut subheadings of definition, etc., the etiopathology. Though the information available in the Samhitas are all scattered, it forms a complete comprehensive text for, or we could precisely call it as the Gita for the Shalya Shastra. So in the text, Acharya has given us explanations and descriptions about the ethics, consent taking, the pre-op, the operative and the post-operative division of any surgical procedure. As we have already discussed in the earlier sessions in detail about the concept of Ashtavida Shastra Karma, of how any surgical procedure, the steps will get incorporated under these 8 headings of the surgical procedure. Drainage of abscess, that is the incision and drainage. With respect to drainage, again, what are the different kinds of abscess, wherein Acharya called it by the term Vidradi. And before the onset or the actual pathology of Vidradi, Acharya says it always proceeds by what is called as Vranashota, that is nothing but the inflammatory process. So he exactly understood the process of inflammation, how the inflammatory processes precedes that of the formation of or abscess formation, not just the external abscess like the common pyogenic abscess, but he had also knew that many internal abscesses could happen in the body, that is at the level of internal organs, and that is why he gave a classification of the Abhyantara Vidradi and the Bahya Vidradi, stressing upon those abscesses that happens to the external and those abscesses that happens at the level of the internal organs or the viscera of the body. So in the same describing the same, so he gives the reference of Gude basti muke nabhyam kuksho vangshanayostata vrukko yakruti plihna cha hridaye klomni tathaiva cha. So if we have to understand it with respect to the current surgical knowledge, then we could get the references of the anal, that is the rectal abscesses due to the infection of the blocked cryptoglandular passages. Basti Vidradi, wherein it could be a reflection of many perirenal infections. It could be from a upper urinary tract infection or a simple ascending urinary tract infection causing abscesses, intramural abscesses of the bladder or bladder wall abscesses, spontaneous bladder wall abscesses, all of these. The urachal cyst forming huge abscess in the adult. Present, so it is usually that of the the fetal origin or the embryonic origin, but presents in the adult life as a huge abscess at the level of the umbilicus. That could be the Nabhi Vidradi, the urachal abscess, various abscesses that could happen at the level, at the anatomical extension of the abdomen. They can occur near the inside of the abdomen wall and also at the back side, that is at the posterior region in of the with that of the abdominal organs. So like acute pyogenic inguinal abscesses, perirenal, that is all varieties of renal abscess at the level of vrugga, liver abscess at the level of yakrut, pleha splenic abscess, also cardiac abscess, though it is very very rare. Acharya Sushruta has made a description of that also. So wherein suppurative infection of the myocardium or the endocardium because of either bacteremia or sepsis. So with a pre-existing cardiac infective focus, so then the cardiac abscess is also a possibility. Also palatal abscess that happens at the level of the oral cavity. All of these are explained by Acharya Sushruta while he focuses on explaining about the concept of Vidradi. Next, he has again given the description, the detailed description of surgical instruments, that including the sharp and blunt instruments. Like we have references to crudely translate it to make it more understandable. So all kinds of knives like razor-like knife, bone saw, curved bisturi, scalpel, finger knife, lancet, puncture needle, scissor, various types of scissors, suturing needle, hooks, tooth scaler, probes, cataract needle, brush, trocars and cannulas, all varieties of instrument that includes even all the scopes, like for example the proctoscope, or in everything under the name of Nadi Yantra. So wide variety of yantra that could be of use during the Shastrakarma, that is the surgical procedure. How actually a yantra, that is a typical ideal yantra or a shastra should be. All of these are again in detail explained by Acharya Sushruta. So as we've already delved into too much of detail in the previous sessions about surgical simulation, about plastic surgery, all of that is also again a part of the explanations under the Sushruta Samhita. Next, he is also given the qualities of a surgeon, how actually a surgeon should be. To be called as a surgeon, what is the prime criteria, with both the theoretical and the practical knowledge being the basis of surgical skill. He also talks about various incisions that has to be taken on the body, which part of the body, which shape of incision has to be taken, so that it prevents the tension over the suturing line. It helps in faster healing of the wound. It avoids the wound gaping. It otherwise, if not done properly, it leads to the formation of keloid, that is the Vranakandi. All of these are again told, which gives us a clear-cut idea that Acharya Sushruta definitely knew about the Langerhans line, though it is not coined as with these Western names. Definitely the principle itself gives an idea, clear-cut idea, that Acharya Sushruta was very well knowing about the concept of Langerhans line. That is very important in making an incision with respect to the surgical procedure. Moving further, again he gives the concept of sterilization, he gives the concept of bandaging. He says how the patient has to be taken care in the pre-op, during the operative, and also in the post-operative times, how the patient and the surgical wound has to be taken care to avoid post-surgical complications. He also stresses very much on the pain management, whether it is surgical or non-surgical. So high importance on pain management, acute and chronic, has been stressed upon in Ayurveda in the Sushruta Samhita, which we will actually be dealing it in a little detail in the current session itself. Again, with respect to the Anushastras, that is, we have 3 Anushastras, that is, which is very close to that of the surgical technique itself. That is, these Anushastras have the capability of giving almost a half or almost doing the functions, same functions that of the surgical procedure. Whenever the surgical procedures cannot be adopted, these Anushastra karma will almost give the same surgical benefits, and it will avoid major exposure to the major operations of the body. So these are the Kshara, Agni and the Jalauka karma. How all these three Anushastra karma help in performing the minimum operative procedures. Like, to put in simple words, Kshara is nothing but it is a caustic alkaline substance that is obtained from the ashes of medicinal plants. So it is a milder procedure compared to surgery and the thermal cautery, that is the Agni Karma. So it is superior most among the Anushastra Karma is what Acharya Sushruta opines. So this Kshara has the Karma, that is the Guna Karma, that is the attributions of performing the Chedana, Vedana and also the Lekhana Karma. That is that instead of using an instrument that instills more pain to the patient's body, this Kshara Karma, it does almost half of the same procedure, wherein the Shastra Karma or the surgical hands cannot be reached. So, and also that it is more versatile in nature, that it can be used even externally and internally. That is why Kshara Karma is useful as a substitute to that of the surgical instrument, because they can be used safely on patients who are afraid of surgery, that is Bhirutva, where it is present. Especially, it doesn't mean that it is very easy to be performed. It strictly needs the or it demands the knowledge of how to use the Kshara Karma. All of those rules and regulations have been given by Acharya Sushruta, so it has to be strictly practiced under a or it should be strictly, the treatment has to be taken under a trained Shalya Shastragna only, with all the do's and don'ts in purview to that of the Kshara Karma. Coming to that of Jaloka Vacharana, wherein Acharya stresses its application of letting out the Doshita Rakta when the dosha has taken its seat in the Rakta Dhatu, or the dosha, Doshita Rakta, when it is present. According to Acharya Sushruta, Rakta is both the dosha and the Dhatu. So in such cases where there is Pitta Pradhanata, so in such cases the Jaloka Avacharana has been told, wherein it wards off the Doshita Rakta that is present in the Sharira, and thereby reduces a lot of Pitta Raktagata Vyadis, especially those like the blood related disorders and also various skin disorders. It is one of the famous line of treatment. So with not just explaining its uses from that of the Sushruta Samhita, the leech therapy has been nowadays being very popular, called as the biotherapy, and many researches have been put forth with respect to that of leech therapy. So in leech therapy, so researchers are now accepting with respect to leech therapy that almost leech therapy can be accepted as an alternative therapy to the treatment of vascular disorders. They say that it temporarily increases the blood flow, especially it has the capacity to ameliorate connective tissue hyperalgesia. It is also a very excellent remedy in phlebitis, wherein the topical leeching, the patients with topical leeching exhibited better walking ability, less pain and minor leg swelling and a normal leg skin color. So leech has many enzymes present in its saliva, which actually exhibits all of these actions, which are recorded in Acharya Sushruta's Samhita. So though it was again not called by a Western name of Hirudin, either the antiplatelet inhibitor, etc., the Gunakarma attributed to Jalauka Avacharana, or all the contexts where Jalauka therapy has been indicated, that clearly shows that Acharya Sushruta knew all of these medicinal uses of the Jalauka, that is the leech. So leech has something called as hirudin, and it is actually to say it is the only hematophagous animal derived anticoagulant that has been approved by FDA for clinical practice. So this hirudin, it is an excellent anticoagulant, and in contrast to that of the low molecular weight heparin, which is an indirect thrombin inhibitor, Hirudin has the advantage of exerting direct inhibitory effect on thrombin without the need for an endogenous factor. So that is why Hirudin is the drug of choice in patients with intravascular coagulation syndrome, that is the DIC. So again, Hirudin can be safely used in patients with platelet abnormalities or heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. So in all such conditions, the leech therapy is in research now, or it is also being in clinical trial and practice now. Again, the leech therapy is attributed to the or the leech is attributed to the antiplatelet factor. So it is the factor 10A inhibitor, that is the decorzin inhibitor. So that is why it is used in conditions where there is platelet adhesions, in diseases where there is platelet adhesions or clotting. So especially it is said that leech therapy increases good circulation at that place by improving the collaterals at the level where there is a decreased or where there is compromised circulation. Coming to that of uses of leech therapy in reconstructive surgery, that is the microsurgery. So after plastic surgery, so suppose if there is venous occlusion, so that leads to the formation of thrombus and there is stasis of blood. So if that happens, there is a reject in the graft uptake is lost, or the flap or the graft could be rejected by the body, because there is tissue necrosis that starts immediately once there is stasis of blood. So to relieve this venous congestion in the is the vital step that has to be done at that level, and to do so, leech therapy is one of the choice of treatment. So immediately after leech therapy, what happens? There is acute blood drainage resulting from the sucking action of the leech, and again after the active bleeding, there is passive oozing after leech detachment happens due to the presence of anticoagulants in the leech saliva. So that is why, because of both of this, it relieves the venous congestion and it prevents the graft uptake failure. So that is why it is reported that it is one of the successful remedy to improve blood flow after microsurgery. So that is why it prevents the flap collapse with noticeable improvement in case of color change, and also in that of decreasing the minor complication with respect to the plastic surgery. So this is the current applicability of Jalokavacharana, that is the leech therapy. It is also been widely being researched under the cancer and metastasis, in DVT, in arthritis, and in as an analgesic, that is as providing analgesia, so which it will be discussed under the pain management in Ayurveda. So with varied applications of Jalokavacharana, the main concept being taken, or the first person to use this leech, knowing the medicinal properties that are hidden in this leech, the first person was Acharya Sushruta. With again, I am repeating the same thing again and again, without any use of any modern sophisticated instruments, or without using the modern the technology or the physical equipments that are available in the current times. So without all of these, Acharya Sushruta exactly knew the uses of the leech, how he could use leech as the as a anushastra to prevent in cases where surgeries cannot be adopted, or to prevent complications, or to prevent the need of surgical procedure. So talking about of listing the various surgical procedures that are told in Sushruta Samhita, so to list a few of them. So there is surgical procedure explained, that is the incision and drainage for the abscess. He has given the surgical management for hydrocele, fracture management, wherein in case of a simple fracture, how it has to be managed. In case of compound fracture, what has to be done, to such an extent that even external fixation has been told by Acharya Sushruta. He has given varied treatment aspects for dislocations and fracture, both of them being very highly applicable at those times. So that helps us to know the depth of knowledge Acharya Sushruta had with respect to the skeletal system and how to manage fractures, which is also one of the major surgical a wing or the part of the surgical procedure. So all of these has been told under the same context of the Bhagna Chikitsa. Acharya has also given the explanation of osteomyelitis that could happen, that is the infection of the bone tissue that could happen. So reference of even osteomyelitis is present in Sushruta Samhita. The descriptions with reference to malunion or a union and what is the treatment that has to be done is again told in Sushruta Samhita. Reference of osteoclasis, that is wherein there is refracturing the bone tissue in case when there is malunion or a union, and then making it to align again is, that is the reference of osteoclasis that is present in Sushruta Samhita. So with respect to fracture treatment, an entire chapter has been dedicated, two chapters basically in one, wherein he explains how what are the reasons the fractures could happen, what are the types of fractures to understand, and in the other adhyaya in the Chikitsa Sthana he gives how each of these has to be treated and how to prevent the complications of the same. So this is with respect to the fracture management. Moving further again, in the while he starts explaining the various types of sadhyovrana, that is the acute wounds that could happen, like the abrasions or the cut wound, excised wounds, punctured wounds. So all of this has been told, and when it happens on a particular viscera, that is when it happens at the level of the koshta, that is the abdominal viscerus, then what are the complications, what are the immediate symptoms that could be seen. He gives references of hemoptysis, wherein if there is punctured wound, immediate wound that happens, trauma to the gut, then there is vomiting of blood, that is hematemesis, hemoptysis. All of these have been told. Immediate management, emergency management has been told in the same chapter. While doing the same, he also gives a reference of the biological suturing that has to be done at the level of intestine. So suppose there is a traumatic wound or injury to that of the acute injury to that of the intestine, then how the intestine has to be sutured using biological suturing, that is the head of the ant, wherein immediately once the ant catches the two parts of the intestine approximating the same, the head of the ant has to be cut off away from its body, so that the tongs of the ant, it holds the cut ends of the intestine, and that is how a series of suturing is done over the intestine. Maybe at that time it was this biological suturing that was used, like how we use sutures that do not react or do not cause further infection in the post-operative stage. Maybe it was this biological suturing that was apt at those time to perform suturing over the internal organs of the human body. So, next he gives again surgical procedures and also the conservative management for certain problems like the fungal infection of the web spaces of the fingers, how to manage nail bed infections. He has spoken about lymphadenopathies. He has spoken the procedure he is given for tonsillectomy, polypectomy, pterygial excision, cataract surgery, treatment for trichiasis, how to surgically remove the corn and the callosity. He has also made descriptions about the breast abscess and how it has to be treated, various lumps that could be found at the level of breast and how it has to be treated further. Treatment for various cystic swellings that could happen in the body, that is present in Sushruta Samhita. Treatment for varicosity, that is the varicose veins, have been told in Sushruta Samhita. And treatment for varied benign and malignant tumors are also told in Sushruta Samhita. Also, in Sushruta Samhita, there is a reference for what is called as the secondary formation, that is the concept of metastasis, has been told by Acharya Sushruta. He has given treatment for herpes, treatment for diabetic carbuncles, diabetic ulcers, fresh wounds, traumatic wounds, chronic ulcers, how they have to be treated, how to identify foreign body that is present inside the body. Now, suppose in olden days when the warfare was common, there were instances of foreign body that came from a farther distance with a high speed, entering into the body, piercing various vital organs in the body. So in such cases, how these external foreign bodies have to be removed, in what direction. So if we remove in a particular direction, how it prevents the re-injuring of other vital organs in the body. All of these have been dealt, giving importance to the kind of wounds, that traumatic wounds or injuries that could happen in, that prevailed in that era or in those times. Again, he has focused on pain management throughout the Sushruta Samhita with respect to chronic disorders or the acute or the post-operative pain management. All of this, as we dealt in the last session, a detailed explanation or a chapter dedicated to plastic surgery. He has also given us descriptions about craniotomies, how to perform cesarean section, how to perform or manage complications that could occur during the delivery of the baby during parturition. All of those have been told in Sushruta Samhita. He has again dealt with too much of depth about the surgeries that happens at the level of the eye, the nose, the throat, and also the ear. So the ENT surgery also has been given very much importance in Sushruta Samhita. So among varied surgical interventions, about 70 to 80 surgical procedures that have been told. Again, the operation for the fistula in ano, fissures in ano, the hemorrhoids, including the internal hemorrhoids, external hemorrhoids, how to remove the urinary calculi. All of these are certain examples for the concepts or the descriptions of surgical techniques in Ayurveda. So each of these surgical principle or surgical technique, they are seen in every nook and corner of the Sushruta Samhita. Only difference is that it has been described with reference to that particular context. It is not very easy to find, as like how we see in a very orderly manner in how we see in the current surgical texts. So now moving further on to the concept of pain management in Ayurveda. So the goal of any science is to reduce suffering or to reduce the pain. Whether it could be during the treatment, because it could be because of a disease, it could be because of a treatment procedure performed. So any of these, the main goal is to reduce suffering and to reduce pain. So this pain management has again been very effectively dealt by the acharyas of Ayurveda. So in Sushruta Samhita, special references with respect to pain management have been given to the application of Lepa, Agni Karma, and the Siravyada. So with respect to Lepa, so topical applications in Ayurveda are called as Lepas, and this comes under the broad heading of what is called as Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa, that is doing chikitsa or treatment from to the external of the body. So all of us know that skin is the largest protective barrier in the body, which prevents invasions of microorganisms, foreign substances, and it is basically a protective shield to this physical abode. So the main area of Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa, so the main organ the Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa targets is this skin, and all the treatments like either the Abhyanga or the Svedana, Pradeha, Parisheka, Udvartana, etc., all of these that falls under the Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa, it focuses to the main organ, that is the Twak, that is the skin. So especially under the Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa, so those procedures or medicaments which make use of the or which comes in contact with the skin, as in the form of the above mentioned procedures, that is, as we said, that is the Abhyanga, Sweda, Pradeha, etc. So because of which it comes in contact, and because of the treatment or the medicinal principles of those of those medicaments that comes in contact with that of the external skin, so it brings about the elevation of the ailment at the level of skin, and it is combinedly called as what is called as the Bahir Parimarjana Chikitsa. So mainly coming to that of the Lepa, it it crudely means it is something that is smeared or plastering or anointing over the body. So this could be either wet or it could be dried. So if it is wet, like preparing a paste from a fresh plant, available plant, wherein while pounding it, a paste is made and that is applied over the skin. In case of dry drugs, wherein it is added along with water and it is grounded well so that it gets converted into a paste, and further on this lepa is applied over the body. So in this way lepas were applied. So though it sounds very simple, and it also feels like this could be practiced by anybody, but no, even in this mere application of a paste or a lepa, acharyas have found that applying these lepas with certain amount of thickness, it has different action over the body, and also that it has different action over the doshas too. So according to Acharya Sushruta, it is of three types. So he calls it as pralepa, pradeha and alepa. So in case of pralepa, he says tatra pralepaha shitaha tanu avishoshihi vishoshiva. So that is when it is these are those lepas that are applied when they are cold. That is, it is not applied when it is ushna. Heat is not the entity here, and it is applied as a very thin layer, and it has a quality wherein it dries up very quickly. And moving on to that of the pradeha, he says that it is that which should be applied when it is ushna, as a thick layer so that it could be either thick or it could be it could be either hot or it could be either cold, but it is that which is applied in a very thick layer. So when that is, it is applied either bahala or bahu. So it does shodhana and ropana and can be used in vata kapha pradhana shofa is what Acharya says. So these are certain indications wherein he says that at which stage of the disease the pradeha can be used. So next, moving on to the concept of alepa according to Acharya Sushruta. So he says the alepa is that whose thickness is in between that of the first two, that is the pralepa and the pradeha, and he says it is, so since this is moderate, it is useful in rakta pitta adhika shofa, that is wherein there is inflammation that is caused due to the rakta and the pitta dosha, and where there is burning sensation, where there is itching, where there is pain. In all such cases, alepa is the best that can be used, and also in those where it is in cases of marma pradesha, that is with respect to the anatomical location of vital organs. So in all such cases, the alepa can be used. Now, thinking of how all of this could actually give us an effect of managing pain. So trying to analyze the possible mode of action of all of this, that is the lepa. So in the chapter Dhamani Vyakarana Adhyaya, so in the further chapters, Acharya Sushruta explained Dhamani are Urdhvagata, Adhogata and also the Tiryagata. So here he explains 4 Tiryagata Dhamanis, out of these 4, each divides gradually into hundreds and thousands and thus becomes innumerable. By these, body is covered, like he says that it is completely covered with vasculature. So it is through them that the virya that is the active principle of the abhyanga or the snana or the lepa, they enter the body after being transformed into the anatomy of the skin, and thereby it also carries the active principles of the medicaments too. So coming to that of the physico-chemical properties of a drug in topical dosage form, how it actually affects. So it is the effect of the drug is through the transdermal delivery and the topical bioavailability according to the modern pharmacology. So the molecule of the formation after penetrating through the stratum corneum, that is one of the layer of the skin, and thereby hence into the viable epidermis and the dermis. So it produces its characteristic pharmacological response through the receptors even before the blood and the lymph circulation remove it out, in which case it may set in a series of chemical reactions contributing to the rate of limitations to the transdermal absorption because of its high diffusional resistance. So it is a very according to modern researchers of how to coordinate or how to correlate the action of LEPAs or the topical applications that are hugely in use even in the current times. So that is how we could try to draw parallels of the use of LEPA and by Acharya Sushruta, especially in that of pain management. Moving on to that of Agni Karma. So, as we have already discussed, Agni Karma is one of the Anushastra Karma, and that Agni Karma is considered to be the superior most among all the varieties of Anushastra Karma according to Acharya Sushruta. Coming to that of Agni Karma's applicability of where all Agni Karma could be used. So especially the indications of this procedure, if we analyze, it is said in all those pathologies where pain is the essential criteria. So in cases of like Gridrasi, Vata Kantaka, Manyasthamba, Janusandhigata Vata, that is pain in the knee joint, pain at the level of neck where there is stiffness or there is reduced range of movements of the neck, pain in the heel, pain in low back, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, degenerative disorders, ankylosing spondylitis, etc. So in all of these cases, Agni Karma is the preferred management of choice. So this is the translation of its applicability with respect to with modern description. In Ayurvedic text, that is in Sushruta Samhita, the indication of this goes by the Vyadhi Nama, that is the names of various disorders. Like all of them are in the Sanskritam. So trying to analyze the mode of action of Agni Karma. So if we look into the amount of temperature that is needed to burn the skin tissue, so it is around 40 degrees Celsius. So in Agni Karma, the Shalaka is used, which is made out of various substances like Panchaloha, Rajata, Suvarna, etc. And these are heated to red hot and then they are applied over the skin where there is pain. So again for the same, the do's and don'ts have been described in the Samhita and they are done accordingly only. So trying to analyze the mode of action here. So when this red hot Shalaka above, that is heated above 43 degrees Celsius is produced, it is kept on the skin. So this produces a painful peripheral stimulation on the skin which preferentially activates the low threshold myelinated nerve fibers. So because of which the afferent input from these fibers, they will inhibit the propagation of nociception. Nociception is nothing but one of the complex physiology under the central nervous system which happens in a flash of a second, but the actual procedure, the pathway is really complex. So that process which helps us to appreciate pain is what is called as nociception. So this propagation of nociception that is carried through the unmyelinated fibers, that is, they are developing due to the stretching of the nerve fibers in the painful area. So this a complete physiology is being inhibited, that is the descending inhibitory pathway which modulates the pain sensation with the release of certain specific hormones like that of endorphin, beta endorphin, encephalin, etc. So all of these they have an analgesic effect which will reduce or inhibit the pain sensation. So this is how we could actually interpret the we can try to analyze the Agni Karma effect or in modern terminologies. Also, that application of heat, it definitely increases blood circulation to that part, that is the affected area. So it helps us to flush away all the inflammatory substances and reduce the swelling too. So rise in temperature, it induces relaxation of muscles and it also increases the efficiency of its action by increasing blood circulation as we just discussed, and thereby the muscle fibers contract and relax more quickly, which makes it possible to perform activity of that extremity more efficiently than to the previous stage wherein there could be experience of huge amount of pain when any activity is trying to try to be initiated. So this is with respect to that of the Agni Karma. Moving with respect to that of Rakta Mokshana, wherein we have already discussed about the Jalauka Avacharana. Rakta Mokshana, wherein the part of the whichever is the part afflicted, so the vitiated blood from that area is made to let out of the body, because of which there is an immediate analgesic activity that is experienced in the body. So with respect to that of the leeches, so we have already known that these leeches have excellent anticoagulating effect. It has anti-inflammatory effect. So because of which the leech's saliva has something called as delin, which is one of the compound that is present in the saliva, and it has this anti-inflammatory action, because of which it reduces the pain. Also that the leech's saliva has certain enzymes which helps in vasodilation. So as soon as there is vasodilation, again there is increased blood circulation, because of which there is flushing out of the inflammatory substances, which results in reduction of pain. It also has anesthetic effects because of leech therapy. Again, the saliva of the leeches, it contains these anesthetic substances, which is immediately, once it is applied at the region of pain or the site of the lesion. So because of the effect of this anesthetic substance or the compound in the leech's saliva, it helps to appreciate less pain at that region of leech application. So this is how Rakta Mokshana or the leech with respect to leech therapy could help in management of pain. So this Rakta Mokshana is not just by the Jalauka Avacharana according to Acharya Sushruta. So we have something wherein the Shrunga or the Alabu, which in recent times have been modified as what is called as cupping therapy. All of these have been in use in the current practice. So the simple criteria is how is when the excess of blood, because of whether there is a venous congestion, etc., which are leading to increased buildup of either the P substance or the inflammatory substance. So as soon as that part of the blood is let out, so there is immediately remarked reduction in that of the sensation of pain. So this is with respect to pain management, the brief description of the focus of pain management in the Sushruta Samhita or by Acharya Sushruta. So all of these with respect to the context of the pathology or the criteria, they were used to manage pain, whether it was pre-operative or operative or in the post-operative period, also including that of the chronic pain. Talking further about the concept of surgical ethics in Sushruta Samhita, as we said earlier, there is no special complete adhyaya or a chapter that is being dedicated to only focus on the surgical ethics, but this concept of surgical ethics or the treatment morality, the morals of a physician, the morals of a surgeon, the morals of any medical personnel, all of this have been seen in almost every chapter scattered throughout the Sushruta Samhita. To pick a few of them which are very important or which sounds very apt even in current times. So the first one, wherein Acharya very repeatedly focuses and stresses upon the importance of both the Shastra Grana and the Karma Nipunata, that is both the theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge is very important to not let the patient succumb as a iatrogenic complication, that is where a doctor himself should not become responsible for further complication in the patient's pathology or in the patient's health condition. The next, wherein he says, suppose if only a person gains only half of the knowledge of the Shastra, that is either only the theoretical knowledge or only the practical knowledge, then he says Ardha Veda Dhara Veda, that is who has learned only half of it, then he is compared to that of Eka Paksha Viva Dvijau, that is he is compared to that of a bird which is having only one wing. So even though the bird has the other wing, it still cannot fly. So in the same way, if the physician or the surgeon has only half of the knowledge of either any of the procedure or the complete Shalya Shastra, then he is incapable of performing or becoming a Shalya Shastragna. He also says that whenever a Vyadi is Snehadi Karma Sadhya, if a bishop does not attempt it and directly jumps into the Shastra Karma, that is, when the disease is manageable in a non-surgical way, if the physician moves into a surgical management of the same, then he is called as a Kuvaidya. So this shows the extent of surgical moral principle that has to be adopted of unnecessary not performing surgical procedures over a patient. So this shows also throws light on the importance of how extensively the surgeon should try to preserve the human body tissues and think twice and thrice of how the surgical management could be better than the conservative management only when needed, and only then he has to perform the surgical procedures. Again, further on he gives a shloka wherein he tries to warn and he also tries to convey to the bishop, that is the Vaidya, saying that Aushadhi could be either Amrita, the same Aushadhi if given to a Agnana Vaidya. So here the Aushadhi could be the Bheshaja, that is the medicine, or it could be the treatment protocol or the procedure. So with the same, when it is with a learned physician or the learned Vaidya, it is Amrita Samana, but when it falls into the hands of a Agnana Vaidya, that is who has only half knowledge of the complete Shastra, then it becomes the same Amrita Samana Aushadhi becomes Shastra, Visha, Agni, Vajra Samana, wherein it definitely has all the potentials to kill the patient. That is why the Gnana Yukta Vaidya is very, very important. Moving on to certain references of continued medical education that is there in Sushrita Samhita. So in Adhyayana Sampradaniya Adhyaya, in the Sutrasthana, Acharya says that Nirantara Adhyayana is one of the basic prerequisite of the Vaidya. So even though he enters into the medical practice, he must always keep in touch with the Adhyayana, that is the learning. Learning becomes a part and parcel of a doctor's life until his end. That is what Acharya Sushrita stresses upon. And he says because of this continued education, he gains these following benefits. That is Vak Saushtava, that is Spashta Ucharana. So he gets all the confidence in speaking and in communicating the science to other people. Artha Vignana, deep study of the Shastra or the science is possible only when there is continued education in any bishop's life. Pragalbhata, that is boldness in performing any procedure, that will come only when there is continued education. Also Karma Nipunata and Karma Abhyasa, that is the skillfulness and the practice is also achieved when the Satata or the Nirantara Adhyayana is followed. Further on, Acharya says talking again about the principles of ethics. Ajanata grihite tu shastre kaya nipatite bhavanti vyapadaschaiva bahavaschapi upadravaha. So if a surgeon, without knowing how to use either the surgical instrument or without having the proper knowledge of the surgical procedure, if he tries to perform the surgical procedure without preclinical training and skills, then definitely he will lead the patient into furthermore complication. So that is why he stresses with these shloka, with these words, upon the preclinical training of the surgeons. Again, with respect to that of the efficient Vaidya or the efficient doctor, he says he should be capable enough to put both the Granthatmaka Abhyasa and the Kriyatmaka Abhyasa into Chikitsa. That is only when the practical application of what is learned, either the theoretical or the practical knowledge is seen, only then he becomes an efficient doctor. For the same, he again gives the example of a donkey that carries the load of chandana. So he says the donkey will never appreciate the quality of the chandana or the sugandha of the chandana, but it will always think that it is carrying only heavy weight. In the same way, a doctor who is not, or a Vaidya who is not capable of implementing or giving the applicability of whatever he has learned, then he'll be only considered as a donkey who only knows that it is carrying a load of weight, but can never in its lifetime can appreciate the quality of the chandana. So he says yata kharash chandana bharavahi bharasya veta natu chandanasya. So in the same way, when the implementation of whatever is learnt is not achieved, then never can the co-parallel thinking or the deeper understanding of the shastra could be gained. Saying so, again, Acharya stresses very importantly on how any Vaidya should not restrict himself to reading or understanding only one Shastra, but he must parallelly do the Adhyayana of other Shastras also. If not, then he cannot appreciate the depth or he cannot correlate his science with the others. For the same, he says, Ekam Shastram Adhiyano na Vidyat Shastra Nishchayam. Tasmat bahushrutah shastre vijaniya chikitsakah. So this shows the importance of how parallel learning and complementary learning of other science is very important in medical practice, in also doing the same medical practice with even more confidence and appreciating the varied creative applicability of the same medicine. That is why Acharya Sushruta here is stressing upon the learning of other shastras also. So saying so with trying to analyze and trying to read through the Sushruta Samhita, which maybe it takes a complete lifetime to say that a complete reading and understanding of Sushruta Samhita has been done by anybody. Trying to utilize this opportunity given, I from the bottom of my heart, I thank Kakandaki sir, Gayatri madam, and also my aunt Sharda madam for helping me and to bless me with this great opportunity of contributing a little bit of whatever is known to make it reach to the entire world out there, trying to show it to people of how important our ancient Vaidya Shastra was, and it is even today, how practical was or how evident was the Sushruta Samhitas in even those times in 800 BC, and how it is even practical even today, how every adhyaya of Sushruta Samhita or every chapter of Sushruta Samhita can really be applicable even in today's medical practice, stressing upon the importance of the study of Sushruta Samhita by every surgeon to appreciate the depth of surgical practice that prevailed way long back, even a human mind could accept or realize it. So, quoting a famous line from Sushruta Samhita, that is, Etena Ayurvedam vina mitradayo api anarthaka iti. It gives immense happiness and pleasure in discussing the concepts of Ayurveda in every phase of life, wherein the same shloka stresses the importance that even though it is the Mitra Kuta, so the Mitra Kuta should be such that wherein the discussions or the exchange of knowledge with pertaining to Ayurveda happens. Otherwise, even that Mitra Kuta is of no use. So saying so, I would again like to thank all the elders of this platform in giving me this opportunity in sharing a few thoughts on the Sushruta Samhita, and I want to conclude this session and the series with this shloka. Om Namami Dhanvantarim Adidevam Surasurairvanditapadapatmam Loke Jararukbhayamrutyunasham Dataramisham Vividaushadhinam. धन्वन्तरिं रमानाथं सर्वरोगनिवारकम् आयुर्वेदप्रवर्तारं वन्दे पीयूषदायकम्। सर्वे जना सुखिनो भवन्तु, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। Thank you.